Hi, welcome back to our tutorial series, Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Creative Suite 2. We are now on lesson 4, retouching and repairing. We'll be working with this area, specifically mostly in this area of the retouch area on the toolbar. I've already opened 4A for the lesson, and while you're opening it, I'll just give you a quick brief overview of some of the things that we hope to work with. So we're going to be working with the clone stamp tool, spot healing, healing brush, patch tools, making corrections on a duplicate layer, talk about that, talk a little bit about layers themselves perhaps, use the history palette, what that shows, etc. So let's get going. And the object of the game in this picture, remove this shoreline area, remove the wake area, get rid of the motorboat. Something else to note, we have some layers sitting here. One is not visible, which is the crew layer, which is the text layer that's right now set as individual, as turned off. It also has some layer effects on it, which we'll see in further Photoshop lessons. So let's turn that layer off and let's be working. The clone stamp tool is the first one we're supposed to be using. It's found second down on the left, clone stamp. It has a particular function in that what it does is it copies, duplicates areas of a screen on a picture to another location. The source area is defined as an alt click, and when you go to use it, you can watch the source go up and down, and then this stuff gets painted down. A couple of things to think about when using the clone tool. Try to keep your source and your destination as far away apart as possible in your picture. It's really easy to spot identical copies if they're close together in a picture, and makes it look obviously photoshopped. The further apart you can keep your copies, the better in that respect. Also pay attention to what you're copying. We have rough water here all the way along here. We wouldn't want to clone in smooth water from here because that would be an obvious Photoshop. The other thing, if you noticed, when I set my source, I picked it on a picture, on the edge of the picture, a defined area or defined line, and then I correspondingly put it down here, a defined area, so that I know roughly where things are going to line up. Because sometimes when you set your source higher and you can run yourself off the page, and then you start to paint in extra lines. So I'm going to undo that clone stamp. What you can also do is you can take your flow rate and you can turn it down, and you can pick something somewhere else on the screen, and you can just put a little bit over one of the more prominent features, and that way you've actually got sort of two copies over top of each other, and that does also decrease the chances that somebody's going to spot a clone on your picture. So that runs us through to the end of page 114, and we'll pick it up again on page 115 with the Spot Healing Brush tool. Spot Healing Brush tool, one on the top here, basically works by averaging out pixels on both sides of your selection. You just kind of drag it in. One of the things I would advise when you're using this tool is make your brush size approximately the same size as what you're trying to get rid of. Now you notice that the actual rough wake from the boat is now gone. But seeing as how it was a boat and it was wake in the water, you can also still see that there's some V lines there. So perhaps it might be useful to try and undo some of those. But you got to be careful because sometimes it ends up picking features that are a little ways away and actually ends up duplicating them over top of what you're working with, and that makes it a little harder to get rid of things. And maybe we should use the clone stamp quickly to get rid of this end of the boat there, just to finish that up. It's a little bit of clicking. That back end of the boat is now gone. This is gone. The wake's gone. And that gives you a bit of an idea of what you can do with the clone stamp. That also lets us through to the end of page 116, and we can turn on a crew layer, and then in essence we have a finished picture. I am not going to save this one. I'm going to close it, but I'll let you save it on your H drive so that you can prove that you've done work. Close it, and then I am going to open up O4B. In lesson 4, we are going to be working with the healing brush, the patch tool, and perhaps I'll show you how to work on a separate layer. So I've opened my O4B. Please note, last used tools are on the top. Last used colors are sitting here too from last time, brush sizes, etc. And keep that in mind as you're working through the lessons. Sometimes you might have to make some adjustments. So page 117, we're going to use the healing brush to remove flaws. Healing brush tool is on the top here. And we're going to zoom in on DJ in the corner here. Healing brush tool. Basically, it kind of works like the clone stamp tool, except that it'll paint on the color and it will take the texture from the other area. So it keeps the color from the certain area you're working with, but it takes the texture from the other area. And you notice that it picked up some of these hard edges down here. I don't want that, so if I'm going to look in my history palette here, I can see what I've just done with a spot healing brush. I'm going to throw that in the trash. Let's see if I can pick a better area so I don't run out of space. And we'll just do that. And that's a much better healing brush job. So zoom back out, Control 0. And we're going to go pick up these spots sitting here with where somebody has put some hammers in the rocks. Maybe I can zoom out a tiny bit here. That's a little aggressive zoom in. Using the patch tool over on page 121. Found underneath a spot healing and healing brush tool. There's the patch tool. Basically what it allows you to do is select the area you want to work with, drag that area someplace else where the texture is clean, and let it go. In the patch tool, it's nice to get something that's colored reasonably the same and also textured reasonably the same. If I run a patch tool here and pull it over in a much lighter area, you can see it did lighten it up, as well as it lost some of the texture because this area doesn't show near as much texture definition as the other did. So just something to keep in mind. Watch out for a little bit. If I put it there, we might be able to make an almost undetectable patch. Now, something to think about. If you had an original picture that you were going to retouch and you were afraid of destroying your original, there's two things you could do. You could either copy the picture using whatever file manager you wish and edit your copy, or let's go select deselect for a sec here. When you pull up your photo in Photoshop, you have an opportunity to duplicate your layer. And you can work on the copy inside of Photoshop. And if that's a bad thing, or if you do bad things, or if things don't work out, you can take your copy and throw that in the trash, and you still have your original to work with. I am going to leave you to, I'm done basically, I think, things I really need to show you in lesson number 4. You can work with the patch tool, the retouch tools in part C as an assignment. Demonstrate that you've learned some stuff in here. Save that on your H drive. You can save this file on your H drive also. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day, and see you back for lesson 5, working with selections.